Okay, could the meeting come to order, please? If everyone would please have a seat.
What are the signs?
Welcome you all tonight. Beautiful weather outside. And here comes Judge Fisher. Welcome. Good to see you here again. Item number 3, virtual and in-person public comments. Limit 3 minutes per person. I have a big handful of public comments, so if I somehow overlook you or miss you, please let me know. We will start with Linda Curtis.
Good evening. Hello, is it on?
No.
Turn the light on. And please state your name.
I'm Linda Curtis. And good evening, President Smith and board members. I am speaking for the nonprofit, nonpartisan League of Independent Voters. We started LIV in 2013 after we realized that both parties had a conflict of interest on water. Largely Democratic-controlled municipalities were in full agreement with Rick Perry's desire to bring the world to Texas as fast as possible. Some of us tried to show Austin a better way to manage growth, and you see how well that went over, as Austin and San Antonio have been in stiff competition for who would grow the fastest. The competition is really what brought us the disaster already happening here, known as Vista Ridge. The growth we are experiencing in Bastrop County, with 2,500 people in units under construction and an additional 5,000 moving into the permitting process, that represents 7,500 people, and units of 1,000 new residents in Lee County. I hope I got that right, Judge Fisher. Should tell you at least one thing. Soon, we will need the tools to prioritize who gets water. The deals keep coming, and officials are usually on the wrong side. No one has told Samsung that there might be a problem with taking water from Milam County, certainly not the elected officials offering 90 and 85% tax rebates for the first 20 years. Williamson County Judge Bill Gravel was in the paper talking about how great it was that Williamson County wouldn't have to provide the water because it was coming from Milam County. Now, what does this have to do with tonight's deliberation on desired future conditions? We know that Groundwater Management Area 12 has taken into consideration these aforementioned projects, or at least they should have. I ask you, why not use the most conservative numbers that are on the table before you tonight? Last, I do want to remind you that we are about to go into another interim session. The legislature has really kicked that can down a dry gulch to parts of Texas unknown. I want to ask you to soon consider an aggressive effort in the legislature to get the tools you need to fully protect these aquifers. I promise to help bring people together, get their partisan gloves off, so we can be fighting on the same side to protect the future of our incoming generations. Thank you for listening and for what you do.
Thank you, Linda. Andy Weir. General comment? Or just for number 5?
Number 5.
Okay. Lane Dustman, do you have a general comment or for agenda item 5?
I wanted to speak on VFCs.
Okay, that's agenda item 5. I'll put you next stack. Don Hardy, agenda.
I can do either one.
Okay.
I just got a quick comment.
Okay, thank you.
Facts are facts, and numbers don't lie. But I'm going to tell you, numbers lie. And I've got a quick metaphor. It's really interesting. People will tell you that our population growth in the world has dropped to 1.1%. The population is not expanding. And that sounds like, wow, we're good to go. The world is not, humans are not reproducing like cockroaches. But here's a fact that's shocking. Just as the population is only growing at 1.1%, every second, 2 people on this planet die. And every second, 4 people are born. That's pretty shocking. So you can say the population is only growing at 1.1%, which sounds small, but it doesn't change the fact that we're reproducing like cockroaches. It really is unbelievable. And if you look back to when I was in school, and I remember the teacher saying, students, the world population is 2 billion people. That's billion with a B. We are expanding so quickly, it's scary. I remember when Texas only had, when I was a kid, I think there were 7 or 9 million people, and now we're up to, I can't remember, over 20 million and maybe even 30 million. So the whole point of this is, no matter what drawdown you consider to be acceptable, no one really knows what effect it's going to have. From my perspective, the most important thing is rivers, streams, and springs, what effect it's going to have on our environment and our living conditions in this area. So please, don't trust the supposed experts, because any of them that are honest will tell you they don't really know. The lower you go, the better. The higher you go, the more we have at risk. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Madeline Eden, did you have a general comment, or was it for item number 5? Number 5. Okay. David Langford, general comment or item number 5?
Number 5.
Tom Glass?
Number 5.
Keith Copeland?
I'm virtual.
Oh,
virtual, there we go.
okay. Are you for a general comment or item number 5?
Item number 5.
Thank you. Doug Fike? Doug Fike? Number 5?
I'm going to yield to, say item 5. Item 5, excuse me.
Item 5? Eric Seeger?
Item 5.
Mike Thornhill?
Item 5.
Leslie Bluestein?
Also, item 5.
Okay. And you're number 5, I assume.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, we shall proceed. Agenda item number 4, consideration of and possible action on findings of fact and conclusions of law related to the board's October 12, 2021 action on the applications of Lower Colorado River Authority, LCRA, for operating permits and transport permits for 8 wells located in Bass Rock County, Texas. For the record, Mr. Phil Cook, Mr. David Fleming, and Kay Rogers will be recused from voting. And Phil Cook and David Fleming are present, and Kay Rogers. Kay, have you joined us on Zoom?
She's there.
Very good, thank you.
We need to make her face visible.
Yes, she will when she doesn't get to vote on this one.
Okay.
She'll join us
Oh, that's
later.
right, that's right.
That's right, okay. All right, board members that are voting on this agenda item 4,
I want to verify that all of you have received and read findings of fact and conclusions of law, the draft permit. Did everyone do so?
Not completely.
Not completely.
Can you use your microphone?
Yes, so you can be recorded.
Not completely.
What do you mean, not completely?
Well, I'm still, that document
Use
is
your
about,
microphone?
that document's about 80
turned it
pages
off.
long. And I haven't completely read all the 80 pages.
Okay. Other board members? At the packet that you received, I think the findings of fact and conclusions of law and the draft permit were in the last few pages. The other you probably received previously.
Yes.
Okay. Board members, do you have any questions? Mr. Ellis is here to help us with any questions we may have.
I have a question about the recommendation of transfer of 25,000 versus the
Okay.
8,000 that's permitted.
Okay, the motion was made and approved by the board was to grant the 8,000 acre foot production permit with a 5-year permit term, which is your standard permit term, but the 25,000 acre foot amount for the transport. The reason for this is they are two totally separate permits. They have two completely different standards for what you have to review in issuing the permits. The administrative law judges found that they had met the standards required to justify the 25,000 acre foot permit for that transport permit, which once they begin construction becomes a 30-year permit. If they have growing demand, if they amend their production permit up to that number, then they could be able to transport that number. Obviously, they're not going to be able to transport more than they're allowed to produce, but they won't have to come back in and amend that transport permit. They've already proven it up. And because it is such a long-term permit, that 30-year permit, there's no reason for them to have to come back and amend this later on. They still can't produce more than the amount of their production permit regardless. So,
But they could purchase water from another producer and transport it.
if they purchase water from another producer and produce it from their wells, they would have to amend that permit to allow that to happen. If they produce that water and that agreement is for them to produce it from their own wells, they would still have to amend their own permit to be able to do that. There isn't an automatic transfer of the permit amount from one permittee to another, allowing them to increase their production without having to go through the amendment process. So I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. Where's Natasha?
I'm hiding over here.
You're hiding? Okay, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. You don't allow for production to be moved from point A to point B without amending both permits.
Possibly, that's my take.
Okay. I mean,
But
you know, there's the comparison there is to the Edwards Aquifer Authority, where we have the exact opposite situation. The Edwards Aquifer Authority, because again that aquifer acts like a pipeline. You stop pumping the water in Medina County and start pumping in Bexar County, the aquifer level really doesn't change that much. It comes up a little bit in Medina County, goes down a little bit in Bexar County, but really not that much. And the legislature made all of those permits, with the exception of the base irrigation groundwater tied to irrigation permits, those are all fully transferable from point A to point B. The situation here is different. Here, if you want to increase your production on your well, you're going to have to amend your permit to be able to do so. Specifically because you want to look at the impacts, potential local impacts to other pumpers in that area. So buying up permits from other people doesn't necessarily mean you get to pump it from your wells. And the other thing is that there are existing permits out there. They would have to be amended to allow for the same place of use, purpose of use. If they were to pump from those same locations, but then put it into LCRA's pipeline, they'd still have to go through the amendment process to allow that on that production permit. Now, I haven't done an exhaustive review of every permit that's out there, but I'm pretty sure, I doubt there's a single permit out there that would allow that to happen without an amendment of some kind. I could be wrong, but again, I haven't looked at every single permit.
That answer your question? Okay.
I can't hear you, ma'am.
She asked if that answered my question, and I said sort of.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Would anyone care to make a motion to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law? Or is there more discussion needed?
I will make that motion.
Okay, so your motion is to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law on the applications of the Lower Colorado River Authority for operating permits and transport permits for 8 wells located in Bastrop County, Texas. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Since you didn't let me go first.
I don't, is your green light on?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Can't hear you.
Is that,
Since you didn't let me go first, I will second it.
okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law related to the board's October 12, 2021 action on the applications of the Lower Colorado River for operating permits and transport permits for 8 wells located in Bastrop County. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Did you have a question?
Yes.
Use your mic.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Just to make sure I want to be clear. We're going to vote on the same thing that we voted on here last month.
Well, Greg wanted to answer.
Yeah.
Because the final decision of the board differed from the proposal for decision that came from the State Office of Administrative Hearings, Administrative Law Judges, we had to make changes to that decision. So both the decision itself, the findings of fact, the conclusions of law have been edited to match up with the motion that was made.
Okay.
And remember, the ALJs recommended granting the 25,000 acre foot production permit. And so because the board did not approve that, we need to go in and change the findings of fact and conclusions of law to match the action the board took.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Anyone else, any questions? Billy?
I have one. What was it that the board found? Or said, excuse me.
I think there's about 70 different findings of fact that are listed.
I apologize, what are we going to vote on? How many, the acre feet?
You've already decided what the permit should say. You've already set the permit at 8,000 acre foot production
Thank you.
permit and 25,000 acre foot transport permit.
Thank you.
What you're approving here is the rationale behind that decision, why you made that decision, what facts you found to be true and correct in the administrative record, and what conclusions of law that you have reached based on the law applicable to this particular application. And we've listed all those findings of fact out and all the conclusions of law. All the ones that dealt with things that were no longer relevant to the permit, to the decision that was made, have been either edited or deleted. So these findings of fact and conclusions of law now match the decision you made at the last meeting.
I appreciate you clarification.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll do a roll call vote. Herb Cook?
Yes. Yes.
Billy Sherrill?
Yes.
Mike Semang?
Yes.
Larry Shoddy?
Yes.
Melissa Cole?
Yes.
And myself, I vote yes. Unanimously passes. Thank you. if the other board members would like to join us, and Kay Rogers, if you're remote, if you could join us by video.
I think.
We see you. Welcome. I know that there's several people are going to be leaving us. If we want to give them a minute or two, Greg can see whether he's there or not.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to stay for the DOC discussion, or?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Okay. Are you leaving, Kim? Okay, we'll go ahead and proceed. We're going to agenda item 5, discussion of, reconsideration of, and possible action of guidance previously provided to the district general manager and district hydrogeologist on the desired future condition DFCs proposed by Groundwater Management Area 12 and the current round of joint planning. And we have many people signed up for comments. Ed McCarthy, you're first, and I can see that you have several people that have donated their time to you.
Cheryl, will board members be allowed to ask questions of the folks who are giving comments?
Ask your general counsel that question.
General counsel, Natasha? Okay, she's coming.
You want her to sit here?
She's got a chair. You can get another
Oh, she
chair.
can sit here.
Okay, she has a microphone.
It's actually not the time to be introducing.
Microphone.
Oh, yes.
Steve.
The one that says push, thank you. So you could respond to setting that on the agenda, or at a later meeting, restate the policy in fact or law, but you actually wouldn't be an appropriate type of question. Can somebody turn that down a little bit?
Is your green light on, Mr. McCarthy?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Natasha, were you through?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, Mr. McCarthy, you may proceed.
Thank you, President Smith. My name's Ed McCarthy. I'm with McCarthy & McCarthy Law Firm in Austin, Texas. I'm here tonight on behalf of Gatehouse Water, LLC, to provide you public comment on the DFCs, and I'll try to be brief, and although I've got 4 persons who have donated in 3 minutes to me, I don't expect to take all of that time. The reason that I'm speaking tonight is because I'm concerned that you've been receiving information month after month about how the sky is falling and the aquifer is about to dry up. If you adopt the recommended DFCs, and if you don't go back to an earlier set of DFCs that would limit production from the Simsboro aquifer to approximately 30,000 acre-feet a year. A couple of things about that. One is that the examples and information you've been provided about the drawdowns and impacts to wells have all related to production in the Vista Ridge project by SAWS, which is pumping in the Carrizo, not in Simsboro. So you start off with an apples and oranges comparison, and so you don't have good, solid, homogeneous facts or information. And that's problematic, because the information you're receiving doesn't apply to the DFC for the Simsboro. Secondly, the recommendation is to effectively adopt a pumping cap of 30,000 acre-feet per year from the Simsboro aquifer. The Texas Water Development Board has said it is not looking to see a pumping cap or a pumping rate in the DFCs. Your proposed drawdown approach has been the approach adopted across the state and one accepted by the Development Board. Secondly, 5 years ago, you adopted a DFC for the Simsboro of approximately 240-foot drawdown. Now, that's not a universal drawdown, that's an average across the GMA. It doesn't occur in every area. What you're being asked to do, though, is to basically create some form of management zone or control zone and apply that DFC of 240 or 183, whatever you adopt, as if it applies universally and uniformly across the district and across the GMA. That's not what the science says, that's not what the model does. More importantly, when you look at the reports that you're receiving from environmental stewardship, SawDef, Defenders of the Aquifer, or any of the other names they use, what I believe you're seeing, because they don't set it out in their papers, they don't tell you or show you their work, they show you their conclusions, is that they're taking that 183-foot drawdown and measuring it well by well by well. They're cherry picking it. Say, if you drop this aquifer that level, this is the impact you're going to have. In their latest report, they report on almost 500 wells, I believe it is, that would be impacted if you allow a Sinsboro DFC of 240, okay? And they talk about, they identify wells in different aquifers. They don't tell you how they got that conclusion or that that many wells would be addressed or impacted. But when you look at it, and I think if you ask your consulting hydrogeologist, he will explain to you that the drawdown in the Sinsboro, even assuming leakage from the other aquifers, is not going to have the same dramatic effect. It will have a much more minimal and less significant impact. So the conclusions they're reaching without showing any support for it aren't valid. The other problem you have is they come in and tell you there's $150+ million in lost property value. They don't tell you how they reached that conclusion. They don't tell you the source of the value they started with. They don't tell you the math on how they achieved the reduction in that value. The way it's written, it reads as if there's an assumption of the water associated with the property has been lost. That water's not lost. Assuming the drop occurs that they're saying will occur, and it's not proven, even in the modeling it's not proven, that doesn't mean that they can't access the water or the water associated with the property is lost. You may have to drill deeper. You may have to pump it harder, but the water's there. Keep in mind that the tax appraisal districts don't value water. The value of the property is a market value that doesn't have a component of groundwater, unlike oil and gas the way we do in Texas. So where they got their valuation numbers and where they got these drastic falls in property prices is unsupported in what they're presenting to you. They're ascribing to what one propagandist proposed was, if you tell a lie big enough and you keep repeating it, eventually people will come to believe it. And that's what they've been doing month after month after month. Now, add to that fact the following. They're asking you to punish the landowners of Lee and Bastrop County for something that's happening in another district in another county. They're asking you to take away the landowner's property right to produce his groundwater, even if he has to pump it from a deeper depth. And that's not something you should countenance. If you look at your charge under the Constitution and under the statute, you'll find that what they're asking you to do is contrary to the law and contrary to the best interests of the district and the landowners and property owners here. I've heard them month after month come up and say, your statutory mission and the reason the legislature created you was to keep the water in Bastrop and Lee County. I've gone back and looked at the Constitution. I've gone back and looked at every piece of legislation related to this district, and you will not find those words anywhere. Now, this district may have adopted that as their mission. You may have it posted on your website, but it's not the law. But what the law is that you only have the powers and the authority that the legislature's given you, and you cannot expand upon those. And what you're being asked to do by these people is to take the property rights of the landowners. And I'd urge you not to do that. The last thing I want to say to you before I leave you with a little video is that you have not heard your expert, Andy Donnelly, your consulting hydrogeologist, nor your general manager tell you that what you're hearing from these people is accurate. You haven't asked them, and they haven't volunteered it. I think it's a question worth asking. I think you'll find a much different answer from them than what you're hearing from the people standing up here telling you that we're going to drain and dry up the aquifers. There is a lot more water than they're leading you to believe. There are things to be done, and we'll talk a little bit about that with respect to mitigation in your next item. But I caution you that the GMA has made a reasonable proposal that effectively doesn't move the drawdown, even though the science, since the last time it was adopted, has been improved and the model has been improved and approved, shows that this same level of drawdown isn't going to harm the aquifer. And those are the factors you need to consider. I wish I could answer questions, but this isn't the forum for it under the Open Meetings Act. But I would like to play a little video for you, or ask that my video be played. It's about 2.5 minutes long, and it summarizes what I think it is you're seeing and hearing, and I caution you to not follow it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
That's our property values.
Before. Close the book. We're not doing this. Here's what we're going to do. Why don't I close the book? We're not doing that. Here's what we're going to do. Why don't I just go back to today? Things took a turn for the worse.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's just gibberish. Gibberish of an insane person.
Oh, come on, Buck! You can't wait to scare us all half to death.
Well, I guess we know what they're thinking of.
Okay, we shall proceed. Next speaker is Mr. Ernie Bogart.
See here, virtual, there he is.
So with all deference to the prior speaker, I'm an attorney too. I'm not here as an attorney here today, but it reminds me of Carl Sandburg, who's made the point about the hearse horse snickering as he pulled the attorney on his way to his grave. You know, you can say anything that you want to and say it's a fact, but it's not a fact until it's established. And frankly, the hydrology and the information we have is very iffy. If the people in the valley in California that turned into a dust bowl had known what was going to happen when the water was pumped out, they might have done more than they did to prevent it from occurring. Our webpage says, indeed, that the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District was created by an act of the legislature to protect the water supply for the residents of Bastrop and Lee County, Texas. That is its sole mission. Other quick facts that are found on our webpage is that our total production, as of the date that webpage was prepared, was 15,000 acre-feet or more than the recharge that was going on at the time. So, however you look at it, we have a recharge rate of 3,500 acre-feet, according to our webpage, and we have a pumpage of about almost 50,000 square feet before anything that's happened since this webpage was prepared. And that's based on estimates of what's coming out of wells that aren't registered and that we don't have any way of really knowing exactly what they're pumping. So the time to correct this is not after we've damaged the aquifer and destroyed a bunch of wells. The time to do it is to be cautionary as we move forward. So I would ask you to maintain the same levels as we have now and continue with caution. And that we protect this aquifer for the benefit of the people of Bastrop County and other users for the indefinite period. I'm 79. I may not be here in 50 or 100 years, but somebody will be. And if they don't have water because we've given it away to people who wanted to buy it and move it to other areas, then shame on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bogart. Steve Fox, and you also have Barbara Bogart, who has donated her time to you, so you have 6 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Steve Fox, and I'm Executive Director of Environmental Stewardship. Environmental Stewardship requests that the board vote to approve a desired future condition to the Central Aquifer of not more than 30,303 acre-feet per year. And since drawdown varies depending on the pumping file you use, drawdown is expected to fall in a range around 183 feet of drawdown. That's predicted from the GAM S15. We have provided you with a handout that was in your briefing packet that explains the basis of our request. And I might add that over the last 4 or 5 years, the data that Environmental Stewardship has been providing to you has been produced in reports that George Rice wrote, and George Rice has provided the information and the help in understanding that information that is behind what we are providing to you. So we have provided you with those reports. So that's just a fact. So what we are requesting is consistent with ensuring that the municipal wells in the district that have been permitted for many years and are currently pumping around 26% of their currently permitted value are adequately covered during the next DFC cycle of review. The permitted wells that are already pumping, those that are pumping. Furthermore, this level of pumping is within the range of pumping that will minimally be protective of surface waters such as the Colorado River and its tributaries, seeps and springs. To give you another viewpoint on the predicted impacts of groundwater pumping on Bastrop County on surface waters, I want to share with you Dr. William J. Hutchison's what he had to say about this. Dr. Hutchison is currently the expert witness for the state of Texas in a lawsuit before the Supreme Court, Texas versus New Mexico and Colorado, over these very same issues around groundwater, surface water interaction and what that does to the river and what that does downstream. Among his many other credentials, he is a consultant for our neighboring GMA 11, and Dr. Hutchinson has also been a consultant for Lost Pines on these same matters pertaining to the potential impacts of groundwater pumping on surface waters, including the Colorado River in Bastrop County, Texas, our county. Quoting from Dr. Hutchinson, from a regional groundwater perspective, the new model does show a reduction in groundwater discharge to surface waters under the base case in Bastrop County, and shows that a scenario that adds pumping would eventually result in a condition where surface waters in Bastrop County would recharge the groundwater system, what we have been saying for some time. He further states that the groundwater budget comparison suggests that about 46% of the pumping will be sourced from reduced base flows to the surface water systems in Bastrop County. And actually, there are some additional data that I provided you from Mr. George Rice that says that that may be as high as 63% by 2070. There is no dispute that increased pumping will result in groundwater level reductions that alter the surface water-groundwater relationship. However, until better data exists to calibrate the models under conditions of increased pumping, it is not possible to rely on precise quantitative estimates under conditions, precise quantitative estimates. Accordingly, conservative consideration of model results is warranted. These impacts are estimated based on the best available science. Rather than precise predictions, the impact upon surface waters and groundwater levels could be worse. To ensure that groundwater and surface water resources are protected, these potentials are reflected by the best available science should be weighed conservatively by the district. That conservative approach warrants adoption of desired future conditions in the Semper Aquifer of not more than 30,000 acre-feet per year. Dr. Hutchinson concludes, it is reasonable to qualitatively conclude, based on the model results and my experience, that surface water impacts may be possible. It is unreasonable to summarily dismiss the potential for impacts. As such, it is both reasonable and prudent that the Lost Pines Board take conservative actions to mitigate such potential impacts in setting desired future conditions for the district while and until surface water impact data have been collected to quantify and verify the impacts predicted to be experienced. And I will reiterate that this data is data that comes from a respected hydrologist, Mr. George Rice. He is on the screen today. He's on this meeting. If he wishes to have any comments to the board about this and to Mr. Ed McCarthy, I would welcome him to do that if you would do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Box. John Berner, or Jen or John Berner? Are you on Zoom?
Is it Jen Besner?
Jen or John? I couldn't tell. Is this Jen? Are you Jen?
Jen.
Is it anything on the writing? Is my handwriting that bad? Yes, I guess my handwriting is that bad. It's Jen Besner.
Okay.
There we go.
Please join us.
How are you guys?
Yes, it is Jen Besner, and I guess I need to work on my handwriting. So, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to come to speak. I do appreciate everyone's contribution and everything that you guys do as you serve on the board. I'm coming to you tonight regarding the upcoming vote on the 2022 desired producer conditions of the aquifer and the groundwater management area 12. As a rural Bastrop County resident and a candidate for the Texas State House District 17, water is a daily concern for both my family and the residents of Bastrop and Lee County. It is a very real possibility that our local small wells will run dry as our water is shipped off to larger cities. The proposed new TFCs are too aggressive and will inhibit the conservation and protection of our current water supply. If we continue to increase the DFC's allocated numbers, this will only aid in continual depletion of our water and will be a burden to our children and to our grandchildren. You guys are way over there, over there and small. Large Texas cities need to stop kicking the can down the road and taking our rural water using larger and larger straws. Both Lee and Bastrop County Commissioners Court submitted unanimous resolutions to reject the proposed expanded 2022 DFCs. I encourage the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District to do the same. Again, thank you for your time, thank you for your service, and I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Terry Wilson.
Hello, my name is Terry Wilson. I'm from Lee County, Lexington, just north of Lexington. First of all, I did have my well lowered, and I appreciate y'all going through the funding, and it's still in the process, but I got it dropped 200 foot. So right now, I got 220 foot of water, and that sounds great. But I'll get back to that here in a minute. This gentleman mentioned facts are facts, and I agree with this gentleman. We have a lot of numbers being thrown at us. Y'all do, we do, and it's all kind of, to me, numbers are y'all can calculate them, speculate, guesstimate, whatever you want to do with them. But at the end, it's still an educated guess. We really don't know what's going on down there. The one fact that I do know, and I wanted to present it to you, since they started pumping a year ago in April, my well has dropped 70 foot. 70 foot. I talked to y'all 2 months ago, it was at 60 foot. I've dropped another 5 foot each month. And let's go back to speculation now. I got 220 foot. And 5 foot a month, I'll be dry in 44 months, less than 4 years. And they say it's supposed to slow down. It's not slowing down. They're supposed to say it's leveled off. It sure hasn't leveled off. And this is at the current rate that they're pumping. I am losing water. I cannot get rural water. Even if I could, Milan County is charging $10,000 per meter now. There's just a bunch of old working folk down my road, and that's something that we really can't afford. You know, is this something that we're going to be compensated for? And then even if I could, I can't, because they don't have real water down there. And there was a comment made right ago that the water's not being lost. Well, I feel I've lost 70 foot of water. I'm not getting it back. Where's it gone? It's lost. And I sure didn't pump it out. It was very rain steady until they started growing a year ago in April. And, you know, you can call it what you want, but that's the fact. 70 foot in a year and a half. And the comment made about the land of value, right now they're not calculating water value. But I guarantee you, in 4.5 years, my water well grows dry, and I can't get any water from rural. Nobody will want my land. They want the land for grazing, but they don't want the house, and my property value will drop tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Ma'am, can I ask him a question?
No, Ms. Martin said that was not permitted, right?
That's right. I mean, if it's something to, what's your question?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Doug Fike?
He donated time to me this.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Keith Copeland, and he said he's on Zoom. Mr. Copeland, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, proceed.
Oh, very good. Madam President and board members, thank you for allowing me to visit with y'all today. My name is Keith Copeland. I'm a Milam County landowner and water well owner, and I've got 40 years of experience as a consulting hydrogeologist. I've 10 years of that was with the predecessor agency to the TCEQ, and in 30 years I've been doing private practice for the private sector. I've conducted hundreds, if not thousands, of groundwater investigations, availability studies all across the state of Texas in my career, both in major and minor aquifers. And I think I feel like I have a very special knowledge or experience with the Crees at Wilcox. I conducted a groundwater availability study for my thesis at Baylor. So I just want to let y'all know that I got a pretty good feel of the aquifers. And what I'd like to visit with you today is that the models that we're looking at, you know, they have limitations. And I think that, like one of the guys earlier said, that we're getting a lot of numbers. Well, these models are very complex, but they're trying to mimic or study a very complex geologic or hydrogeologic systems below ground. And there's a lot of limitations. And the data that's being put into it, again, is data that's been derived over decades, either by the state or they get information from a well driller. We don't really know where all that information goes. So some of that data on the front end can be questionable. And then now the current data is like, okay, well, the district hydrogeologists, let's let them do their studies, let the science catch up with that, improve those models, but also at the same time look at the data it's been relied on. Is it fundamentally accurate? And I contend to you that these models do indeed have a lot of limitations. I think the science is on the way. I'm not discounting the models; they're very useful, but to believe that they are the tell-all is I think a mistake. The geology of the Simsboro or the Crees Range of the units of the groundwater bearing units is very complex, and to broad brush these things could be a mistake. I think we're seeing it. I think the previous speaker, he kind of told us some of that. I think my suggestion is that we allow the science to catch up, use the next 5 years, hold the course, use the next 5 years to let the consultants and the district hydrogeologists improve the data, the accurate data, the data that they actually garner themselves and they've overseen, and let that data be a priority in the models. And I think that will help a lot. So I guess my recommendation would be to hold the course and to take a more conservative route as you do your deliberations. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate y'all's service.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Tom Glass.
Howdy. My name is Tom Glass. I live in Lee County on the Bastrop County line on the Yewa Knobs. My house is about half a mile from Knobs Springs, or the only spring of Knobs Springs. And I'm told that spring was used to supply the water to McDade for a long time in the late 1800s. That spring, to my knowledge, has never gone dry. Even during the drought of 2011, when I went to visit it, it was still producing. The well that we use at our house for domestic water and livestock was drilled in 1984, and it had a static water level of 264 feet. And when about a decade ago, when I purchased that well, it was about that still. In the last decade, it has dropped almost 30 feet. It's now, I had Mr. Totten come and check the water level of that not long ago, and it is now at 292 feet. So we're even in western Lee County, we are dropping in a way that evidently we have not been before. I'm running for state rep in HD 17 with my top issue being protecting the groundwater of this district if elected. I hope to introduce legislation that will provide more protection for irreplaceable groundwater in our rural areas. But in the meantime, I'm very pleased that this board is engaging seriously in the most important issue in the current regulatory framework, and that's desired future conditions, what we're talking about tonight. I've read the Water Defenders Report that we've been talking about, and I'll tell you that I've been educated by it because I hadn't really thought through the interaction between aquifers and springs and what happens there. That was a great insight to me. And I don't have any reason to disbelieve that model. Yeah, you can have dueling models. I've seen that before. I'm an engineer. I know how to do models. And I know the value of them and how they have their limits. I had two reactions to the Water Defenders Report. First, having my static water level drop even 183 feet, which is the minimum that's being discussed in that report, is not desired. We're talking about desired future conditions. I don't desire my water level to drop 183 feet. In fact, if I'm here, I'll ask you to drop it less than that. Whatever you can do to drop it less than that, because my life and my property is going to be big time impacted by dropping it more. We have a hand pump on this well. Hand pumps, at least the ones I've got, and I'm told it's one of the better ones, don't do very well below 300 feet. I've already had, because of this drop, I've already had to drop my hand pump down. And if we have to drop it much more, if I lose another 10 or 20 feet, I will not have backup. The other thing I'm concerned about is our electricity. If I don't have electricity, I don't get water. At least with the way we have it working now. And so I want to have a hand pump, but it appears to me if we drop 180 feet or so, or even 20 feet, I'm going to be without a backup if the power goes out. I don't want that. It's not desired by me. Okay. And then the other reaction I had is that when this study that they talked about was the Colorado River Basin. But the Knob Springs and the water off of the Knob that I live on flows into the Brazos River Valley. And of course, Lee County, most of Lee County is in the Brazos River Valley thing, not the Colorado. And so,
Mr. Glass, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're out of time. If you could just summarize, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. I would just say you got to consider that whatever is going to happen into the Colorado River Basin is going to happen in Lee to the Brazos Valley. So please, let's get a future condition we desire, not one we don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Class. David Lanford.
I'm David Lanford, live in Elgin, and first of all, I want to say I'm glad that I'm not sitting in one of these chairs up here. Y'all have a very hard decision. Y'all have looked at lots and lots of information, and this has got to be a very difficult time for y'all. I appreciate you putting your time and effort into this. Desired future conditions, I look at it in a little bit different area. In a general way, the desired future conditions of this area is we should have sustainable water. Elgin's only source of water is from this aquifer formation. And as they said, most of the science and so on is still a little iffy. 5, 10, 15 years ago, how good was our weather forecast? It was a lot sloppier than it is now. They've done pretty well with that. Our science has not caught up with the interaction between these different aquifers. I beg y'all, please go very cautiously here, very slowly, and have our desired future conditions so that our children, grandchildren, and future generations will have sustainable water for this area. We have a lot of models around the country, from California, West Texas, and so on. We see what happens when an aquifer goes dry. You don't get it back. Not only are we going to affect the area of the water in this area, but we're also affecting the entire Colorado River Basin. Please go very cautiously and limit these. Let the science catch up till we have a little more information on if we are damaging this aquifer or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lanford. Madeline Eden.
Good evening. I just want to thank y'all for letting me come up here to speak, and thank you.
Would you state your name first?
My name is Madeline Eden. I am a resident of Bastrop County. I've been here for about 17 years. I've raised a family of 4, and we hope to continue living here for a long time. I guess, I grew up in San Antonio. I think you hear all about San Antonio, Vista Ridge, and Edwards Aquifer, and we grew up with water rationing, and it's something, that's something that we haven't had to do a lot out here in Bastrop County. A lot of that is because of the availability of the aquifer here. And I really appreciate what this board does in terms of stewardship and conservatorship for the natural resources that we have here. I guess, and I really appreciate y'all's service to the communities in Bastrop and Lee counties and Milam. But I guess my question is, I've listened to several of your meetings, and I don't understand what sort of fiscal necessity there is that we would need to permit people who are intending to ship the water out from our ground and send it somewhere other than the communities here. It doesn't seem like there should be any purpose or reason that we should be allowing that to happen. I'm a data scientist, and I am here to tell you, you do not want to depend on models for this kind of thing. Not when we're talking about the amount of exponential growth that we are going to see out here in Bastrop County in the next 10 years. The amount of growth that we saw from the recent census is enough to, I think, encourage y'all to exercise caution when deciding about whether or not you should allow people to pump this water out of here. I think it's crazy. We are going to need this water. We need it now. We've got people with wells going dry. So I hate to say it, but I definitely agree with Mr. Glass about the desired future conditions. I think that even the ones that we had previously are a little too aggressive. And I'd like to, as a member of this community, urge you to reconsider the recommended DFCs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton. Lane Dustman?
Hello, my name is Lee Dustman. I'm a Bastrop County property owner, and our household relies on a well. I never took high school debate, but I have learned that there's a thing called the straw man argument, where you say, oh, my opponent makes outrageous claims like the sky is falling, and we all know the sky's not falling, so therefore you can't believe what my opponent is telling you. Environmental stewardship is not telling you that the sky is falling. They're telling you that if you withdraw water faster than it is replenished, it drains the aquifer. I also understand there's a thing called the tragedy of the commons, where it's good for each fisherman to go out and pull in as many fish as he possibly can, but if there are so many fishermen that fish are being withdrawn from the sea faster than they're replenished, it's bad for the group. And I think groundwater is an example where we have a tragedy of the commons. With regard to desired future conditions, I think the proposed desired DFCs are way out of bounds, that it shouldn't matter. I don't care how many acre feet are pulled out from the county. What I care about is that the river continues to flow the way it does, and the springs continue to flow the way they do, and that the well continues to pump the way it does. The aquifer is being drained. The fact that people's wells are going dry is a critical factor and clear evidence that that's the case. And I don't think that's what I want. I don't think that's what you want either for your desired future conditions. I want to thank you for your service on the Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District Board, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is our last comment on this agenda number 5, Andy Weir.
Good evening. I'm Andy Weir. I'm a resident in Bastrop County. I have a domestic well in the Simsboro formation of the Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer, and I'm a board member with the Simsboro Aquifer Water Defense Fund, SAWDEF. Working with environmental stewardship, we produced this report that was in your board packet, the one that unfortunately is the only document that Mr. McCarthy had access to. I'm curious to know, would board members looked at the economic impact study that I delivered last month that was given to the board that spelled out in 5 pages the detail in which we arrived at our numbers, the science. And so just to let you know that those numbers that are cited here are developed from that economic impact study and from the GAM runs, the groundwater availability model that we've been having George Rice run. And so I take the results from the GAM run cell by cell, and there's 280,000 cells in that model. And so I've also, in that study, I talked about the fact that I've mapped out all 5,000 wells in the Lost Pines district. Actually, I've done all the wells in GMA 12. And I did a guesstimate as to which formation those wells are finished in based on the information that we have. And comparing that against known well formations for groundwater wells from the Water Development Board, I have about a 10% error rate. So if you want to apply an error rate to the numbers that you're seeing in this report, it's 10%. And I've shared that with GMA 12. The hydrologist there, Andy Donnelly's seen it. Steve Young has seen it. They reviewed my methodology. That was something I presented to GMA 12 back in February, and they were considering adopting my methodology for the next DFC process that will start next year. So I think there's some validity to our numbers. The values you've heard. We did the most conservative value we could for property value impact, loss of income, and mitigation costs. And those costs are taken straight from what you're paying right now for mitigation of wells in the Carrizo. So we looked at wells in every formation, and we used the GAM runs to show the drawdown in every formation from Sparta, Queen City, Carrizo, Calvert Bluff, the Simsboro, and the Hooper. And each well that might be damaged by that. And I told you my threshold, which was greater than 50 feet of loss of water. Most people have 100 feet ahead, and when you lose 50 of that, your pump starts sucking air, and it's time to lower the pump. And that's where you get mitigation costs. So
you're almost out of time. Could you summarize?
Yes, ma'am. I just would encourage you, you know what we're asking for. Let's go conservative. It's based on science, and it's a compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weir. Okay, that concludes our comments for agenda item number 5. Yes, sir?
Could I make a very brief statement?
Well, if we need your name, and you need to come up here, sir. If you would come up to the podium and state your name, we'll get you in as a public comment.
My name's Mark Whiting. I live in Bastrop County. I enjoy Chicken Little, but let's take a look at what a small child would think of before Christmas. The small child has desired future conditions. It's called a wish. Basically, we'll compare this child's wish to an ocean voyage using multiple unproven but allegedly reliable charts along with similar compasses and navigational equipment. Oh, and we're relying on fair weather the entire voyage. Would you want to be on this ship?
Thank you, Mr. Whiting. Okay, that concludes our comments. Okay, board members, as you remember, this was on a previous agenda item, GMA 12, at their last meeting, decided to put off voting on the DFCs because of some changes or potential changes to the model for the GMA 12. Jim or Mr. Donnelly, would you like to tell us a brief, make a few comments as to what the changes were and why there was a delay, just to make sure everyone understands?
I think it wasn't the model itself, it was related to the amount of pumpage,
Okay, correct me.
it was just related to what Lost Pines wanted to do with Central Aquifer. And so there was that question, which obviously has come up.
Right, I believe the question was, we adopted the 240 DFC based on the past fact of approximately 30,000 acre-feet of pumping, and with the current new model, the pumping was much more than 30. And I believe your latest was 81,000?
80, yeah.
Something.
It came out to about just shy of 82,000 acre-feet.
Okay. And so because of the difference of about 50,000 acre-feet, the board wanted to reconsider and think about it. So I guess that pretty much summarizes it, right?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Board members, do you have any questions of Mr. Donnelly?
I do. I just want to try to catch up with everybody here, being the new person. I'm correct in thinking that the following factors do not go into groundwater modeling: population, is that right?
That's correct. Population.
Water demand, water use, water strategies, precipitation, and other weather factors. And I'm taking that from...
Yeah, the precipitation and other weather factors can be used to derive an estimate of recharge, but those don't directly go into the model. So population doesn't go in. Water demand might be used when constructing future pumpage scenarios. For example, we looked at water demand estimates when we put together our predictive data set. In terms of developing a model, especially the calibration of the model, those sorts of things are not a part of the model development.
And from what I've been reading, the factors that do go into it, such as the recharge, aquifer properties, even pumpage, are fairly poorly defined.
Unfortunately, a lot of the data that goes into especially a regional groundwater model, are poorly defined. We have a model that covers hundreds, thousands of square miles. We have a limited number of wells. We have a limited number of aquifer tests. Especially here in Texas, we have a limited amount of historic pumpage data. We have to do a lot of exercises to put together data estimates of what historic pumpage is, and historic pumpage is what really controls what's going on, what you can gauge what's going on. And we also have a limited amount of historic water levels to calibrate to. So yeah, there's a scarcity of data. That is correct.
Is that the end of your question, Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Okay. Other board members have questions?
I do have a question for...
Go ahead, Mr. Brennan.
I've heard, so the DFCs... Feedback. Hey, what was the DFC for the last in 2017 for that planning period?
For the Simsboro Aquifer?
Yes.
It's 240 feet of drawdown by 27.
And what are we proposing now?
That's what we're up to we're debating.
What was your recommendation now? And what was the board's guidance from?
The board's guidance was to keep the DSC at 240 feet.
And the Carrizo was what?
Who's left?
62, I believe.
That was the old DSC.
And the new one?
The new one's up as roughly double. I don't remember off the top of my head.
It was 140 something, I think.
Okay, so yeah.
Or 130, I don't
But
know.
what was your board's direction from the last meeting to do on the Carrizo?
The board's direction was to move forward with the pumpage that we have used in the Carrizo, which is very similar to the pumpage that we used the last time, to go with what we had in the from the modeling, because we do have impacts to the predicted drawdown in the Carrizo that have changed due to the new model and to pumpage that's happening outside of our district.
Okay.
Neither of which we can really control, especially the new model.
So basically, the Carrizo, you're going to hold the pumping steady.
Correct.
Okay, and in the Simsboro, you're going to hold the DSC steady, correct?
Correct.
Regardless of what happened to the amount of pumping that was available.
That is the way, that's the direction we got in.
You have a license, are you a licensed hydrogeologist?
Yes.
How long have you been looking at aquifers and hydrogeology?
30 years.
You consider yourself an expert?
I suppose.
I do. I do.
People say I am.
A lot more than me, because I don't know any, I can hardly spell hydrogeology.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That's all the questions I have.
Other board members have questions of Mr. Donnelly, or any other questions for that matter?
Andy, would you characterize the misunderstanding dating from the September and the October meetings as that the board, at least I had on the board, and of course I've spoken to you about this, is not understanding that increasing or keeping the drawdown from 240 feet in the old DFC into the new one entailed about an additional 50,000 acre-feet of water being pumped or available for pumping from the Carrizo. Does that sound like the nature of really what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we've been given direction. There's for a lot of people, there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what a DSC is. I mean, we have county resolutions that say keep the same DSC. We have people saying we want to keep the same DSC, keep the DSC at 30,000 acre-feet per year pumpage. DSC is not pumpage. DSC is an impact to the aquifer, and that's what the GMA and the board decide. What is the impact to the aquifer, and the impact is in terms of drawdown. So the DSC is not a pumpage, it's not acre-feet per year. It is what is the impact to the aquifer. And the impact to the aquifer that the guidance, the impact to the aquifer that the board approved and the GMA approved in the first 2 cycles of joint groundwater planning was 240 feet of drawdown in Simsboro, and that's the guidance that we got from the board previously, is to keep 240 feet of drawdown in Simsboro.
But you can use acre-feet of pumpage to determine a certain amount of drawdown. I mean, can that be done?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the availability, the MAG, the model available groundwater, is. The Water Development Board then uses the model, and they say if the GMA says we want this amount of impact, this amount of drawdown, this is how much pumpage it will take to get there, and that pumpage becomes MAG.
But you can, for our purposes, we could do just the opposite. We could say we want this amount of pumpage, and you could determine a drawdown that would, pretty much.
I mean, anyone who can run a model can do that, yes.
I just didn't want, I'm going to make a motion to that effect, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't asking something that was, off the wall or unreasonable.
So, Andy, I see people with 183 feet or less on their old signs, but then I've heard several people say we want to leave everything just like it was in 2017. And in the 2017, that was 240, right?
What was approved in 2012 and 2017, well, 2012 was 237 feet by 2060. It was rounded up to 240 feet by 2070 in the last round of planning. So 240 feet for the Simsboro Aquifer has been what was twice approved by the board and the GMA for the Simsboro.
And I heard one gentleman say, I don't care how much volume you pump as long as you don't hurt the DSC or lower the DSC, correct? I mean, I heard that. I don't know if anybody else did. And what I propose is that what I've been seeing is that we're holding the line on the DSC and the Simsboro.
In terms of...
It's just a model change so that the available groundwater went up with that DSC.
And that's the basic, that's the hang-up, is that we have twice said 240 feet, this is what we want to have it. And we did that with an old model, and now we have a new model where if we say we want to keep it at 240 feet, we're producing a lot more water. We've known that for several years. We've discussed that. And yeah, that's just the way the new model is. The results of the new model is that you can produce out of the Wilcox aquifers a significant amount more water to achieve the DSCs. And in the shallow aquifers, we can't achieve the DSCs. The model won't get us.
Achieve the same DSC.
Correct. We cannot achieve the same DSCs in the shallow aquifer because the models just will not produce that.
So 183 feet or less is not really, that's just, they won't actually decrease the DSC.
Correct. They want
from 240 to 183.
They want to decrease it. That would be at 240 feet to 183 feet.
Even though it's been approved for the last two planning.
240 feet is what was approved the last two times.
Thank you for the clarification.
Andy, is it my understanding is, speaking in terms of the known pumping, for all the aquifers and formations, but in particular for the Simsboro, that if we were to, under the 2017 DFCs, if they were to continue, not to say that we can do that, that the known pumping would not exceed the DFCs in the next 5 years?
The known pumping would not cause a drawdown to exceed the DSCs in the next 5 years. That is correct.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
One question, Andy.
Yes, sir.
We have Post Oak Savannah to the north of us. And they've amended Alcoa's permit to drill 12 wells?
Yes.
And is that included in our DFCs? Well, the reason I guess when we back up, what I'm saying is, some of us do now know Alcoa has sold that property now. And I assume the permits will be transferred to the new landowners. But these 12 wells are right on the Lee County, Milam County line. Yeah, and now we got them on the west side taking our water, and we got them on the northeast side taking our water. What kind of problem is that going to cause now for that hole up here in the north end of Lee County? And these wells are going to be in the Simsboro.
We haven't gotten in and done detailed modeling, but where those wells are located, there will be impacts to the Simsboro.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
And those are in Post Oak, Savannah?
Yes, they are in Post Oak, Savannah.
So we also have the ability to adjust our management plan to, what do they call, Jim?
Management zone?
Yeah, management zones. Should we need to do that in the future, even in the next 5 years, right? If we start seeing undesirable conditions in the aquifer.
David, I'm pushing for that right now.
Yeah, that's an option. I mean, we're exploring that with the Carrizo right now.
Yeah.
Sure.
And we could do it for the Sims Grove should the board decide that that's the direction we want to go.
And my point is, the decision that we make tonight is not the end-all final decision. It's a 5-year decision, and we can work on that management plan in that 5 years if we need to, plus we can put a mitigation plan together, which we already have, if we need to, and we can develop science to make a better decision in the next 5-year planning period. That's mine. Is that, you agree?
I think that's a fair statement.
Mr. 30-year expert?
Well, I don't feel like we should kick it down the road and wait till something bad happens to change our tactics. And, you know, I'm looking at these models and there's nothing that says there's any really good science in these models. And in fact, just looking what you presented as our, you know, you said be careful about hanging our hat on what a model says. Current coverage wasn't included in the previous iteration of the model, and therefore we're in a pickle. This was from your presentation in September. Can only guess about vertical migration. There's just too many
There are a lot of
unknowns, and the fact that you don't, not you, but the fact that a model doesn't even consider population, water demand, precipitation, the data on recharge.
Well, those things that I said those just aren't a part of the model.
Well,
that's not part of the process.
And I would disagree a little bit that it doesn't consider population growth, because y'all do look at population projections. You wrap the pumping up based on.
Yeah, we look at demand projections.
Yeah, so it actually does look at population growth, and it does look at increased water demand based on that population growth.
Well, I'm just taking it from what he said.
No, I disagreed with Andy when he said that it did not consider.
What I meant when I said that was when you're developing a model, you're looking at past. You look at past conditions. You look at past pumpage. You look at the data you have on aquifers. You do estimates of recharge in the past, and you calibrate your model to past water levels. So population really doesn't play into that. You might use precipitation and other climate factors to come up with estimates of recharge. Demand projections don't come into developing your model based on historic conditions.
But you're not predicting the future.
But when you take a calibrated model and you want to make predictions with it, that's when you might take water demands and look at what you might do with your pumpage that goes into those predictive data sets to make predictions about the future. So when I say water demand isn't really your strategies, that's really in terms of how the model is developed. You might look at those when you're developing what-if scenarios for predicting the future.
Well, I was looking at George Rice's predictions, and I looked back, and in 2015, he put out a paper that predicted that the Vista Ridge would have some very adverse effects on wells and water, and I think that's important to keep in mind right here. We don't want to wait until people's wells are gone like it's happening to these folks, you know. And
Vista Ridge is causing issues. It's in the Carrizo. It is causing significant issues. That is correct.
And I guess that's what I'm saying is George Rice had said that would happen, and now he's saying, you know, if we go, you know, we're still going to drop 183 feet if we stick to the 30,303 acre feet per year. Just something to think about.
Andy, I thank you for your patience in answering all our questions. Is everyone ready to let Mr. Donnelly have a seat, or any more questions from him?
President Smith, I've got a couple of things that I'd like to, I guess, address for the board,
okay,
so that the board has the applicable law. Is this a good time?
Go ahead.
Okay. And I'll need Andy and Jen, so don't go far. So, I mean, I'll remind the board that this is not an action to adopt or set the DFCs tonight. The statute requires that the district provide its comments received during the comment period, which ended on August 18, 2021, to the GMA. Any suggested revisions based on those comments all of that has to happen before the GMA adopts the DFCs on January 5th. So y'all all know that. From what I've heard from both Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Totten is that the problem with having a much lower pumpage or even resulting DFC in Lost Pines than the other districts in the GMA is that the other districts in the GMA, their users will be sucking from the Simsboro at a higher rate than all users in Lost Pines. And Andy, you can correct me, but you know, with the lower Lost Pines DFC, you're looking at forcing curtailment for all users district-wide. So that's those domestic, industrial, all different uses. So if Jim and Andy can speak to this issue and whether or not that eventuality is even possible, if the other districts will be pumping at a higher rate than Lost Pines, and what the problem would be with that.
Yeah, there's still going to be, regardless of what we do, we're still going to have a substantial amount of drawdown due to what's going on with our neighbors. So,
right.
I mean, we zeroed out our pumpage and we couldn't get below the 140 feet of drawdown. So yeah, that's coming from Post Oak, Savannah, and Brazos Valley primarily. I didn't follow the rest of the.
Well, I want to know, so if they've got a 240 and we've got a 183, and they're actually pumping more than we're pumping, we're going to hit our DFC sooner because of their production. So we might end up curtailing all users in Lost Pines because of production in another district.
That's possible. All permitted users. Remember, you mentioned domestic. They're exempt.
Or maybe even some non-exempt municipal.
Correct.
Andy, is any of that likely to happen in the 5-year DFC cycle that we're presently considering?
You mean in the next 5 years? Well,
yes.
I would consider that unlikely.
So we would, so it's not critical in that sense, at least in that regard, that we consider it during this 5-year cycle. If we were getting close to that, or if we saw it happening in the next 5-year cycle, one after that, perhaps that would be, we could consider it at that time.
Can you repeat that? I was distracted.
I don't know if I can repeat all that. The gist of my question is, the scenario that Natasha presented is not likely to happen within the next 5-year cycle.
I would say that is correct. I would not expect that to happen in the next 5 years.
So, in that regard, it's not critical that we account for that in this 5-year cycle, because 5 years from now we're going to have another DFC, and if it becomes more critical, then we could consider it at that time.
I guess I wouldn't disagree with that.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, whether or not what things that are critical, I don't want to try to impress upon people what is and is not critical.
I understand.
I mean, I think, Phil, you're going to the 9 factors, and those should be considered during each and every cycle. And so one thing that I wanted to raise is that the next cycle, planning cycle, starts, what, next year?
Yeah, we've actually already had meetings regarding the next cycle.
Okay. So I'm almost done with the lawyer speak, but I did hear 2 other things that I want the board to make sure they're not necessarily considering or that were misstated. If I heard them correctly, Environmental Stewardship said that they request that municipal wells are adequately covered, and those producers that are already pumping are adequately covered. The problem with this is that you run into a constitutional law issue and a Chapter 36 issue, where it says that the district can't treat certain uses, municipal, or users that are not pumping any differently than others. And so, I wouldn't recommend that the board base their advice tonight or guidance to our district representatives on that foundation. So I just want to clarify that. We can't be treating different uses.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
What we're saying is that...
Carol, let the audience participate.
I'm sorry, but this is not, I'm sorry, Mr. Box, but there's not audience participation, and this is a board discussion. I'm sorry, thank you.
So that's one thing, and the other is similar to it. I've heard criticism on transporting water outside the district. I also want to caution you that you cannot restrict water from being transported outside the district as long as the applications comply with the statutes and rules. Treating transporters differently than in-district users is expressly prohibited. Keep in mind that when making decisions on permits, also in your statements, when you're considering DFCs, be careful that that's not a foundation that you're looking at as well.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Ms. Dolly, I think you've done a very good job. I think you can have a seat. Thank you. Board members, is anyone prepared to make a motion?
Cheryl, if you're willing to entertain a motion, I would have one that I would like to present, if you're willing to entertain it.
It's time for a motion if you so choose.
Board members, I handed out to each of you a paper with a motion that I'd like to present tonight. I'm putting this forward as something I hope all of us can accept. There's really two parts to it. The third paragraph is sort of a modification of the advice that we gave our general manager at the September meeting. I'd like to read the whole thing because, so if you will, bear with me on that. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are what I consider the reasons we would give this advice to the general manager.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Who's the author of this motion?
I am.
Okay, this sounds strangely familiar with something Mr. Box said about we're presenting a motion tonight. Is that not true?
I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. I mean, I don't mean to claim that I've done this in isolation. No, I've read everything everyone sent me on this stuff, and in fact, I've studied it. It's a draft motion for consideration under item 5, November 8, 2021, Lost Pines Board agenda pertaining to the DFCs presently proposed for adoption by GMA 12 in the current round of joint planning. And this is the advice. The board advises the general manager to adopt the district DFCs that incorporate the same amount of pumping for each aquifer and aquifer formation that were adopted in the present 2017 DFCs. This requires adopting drawdowns for all aquifers and aquifer formations that will result in keeping the pumping the same. The board's reasons for so advising include the known pumping for all aquifers and aquifer formations is well below what is allowed in the 2017 DFCs and will not be exceeded during the next 5 years, for which the presently proposed DFCs will be in effect. Thus, no permittee's pumping will be affected. There is no practical reason for increasing the DFCs. Both the Bastrop County and Lee County Commissioners' Courts have passed resolutions to maintain the current DFCs to protect the aquifers during the next 5 years. Representative John Syrier has endorsed these resolutions. This motion heeds the Commissioners' Court's resolutions. 3, almost all of our public comments oppose increasing the DFCs and urge the district to maintain or decrease future DFCs. 4, the planning cycle for the DFCs to be adopted in 2027 will soon begin. The district can use this planning cycle to study and adopt needed changes in its practices and rules and incorporate these into the DFCs it will adopt in 2027. Better, more detailed, and more accurate information will be developed and made available to the district in the next 5 years. This information can be used to address all factors that must be considered when adopting DFCs. So I'd like that to, board members to propose that as a motion. I would certainly encourage you to comment on it if there's anything you would like to include or exclude or improve that motion. I would certainly entertain those as friendly amendments.
Okay, Phil, so I'm going to take it your motion is to advise the general manager to adopt district DFCs that incorporate the same amount of pumping for each aquifer and aquifer formation that were adopted in the present 2017 DFCs. This requires adopting drawdowns for all aquifers and aquifer formations that will result in keeping the pumping the same. Is that your motion?
I would like to include the below items in the motion also, Cheryl, for the reasons that this probably isn't the last we're going to hear of this round of DFCs, and I wanted to make clear why the board advised our general manager.
Okay, well, I see those as reasons, but I think that paragraph seems good enough for a motion, but if that's what you choose, so be it. Do we have a second, or? There's no second? Okay, the motion fails.
Any other motions?
What?
I was just curious, were there anybody else want to make a motion?
Well, are there any other motions, board members, that you would care to make?
Cheryl, that motion failing, I would like to propose a second motion that incorporates just the third paragraph. The board advises the general manager to adopt the district DFCs that incorporate the same amount of pumping for each aquifer and aquifer formation that were adopted in the present 2017 DFCs. This requires adopting drawdowns for all aquifers and aquifer formations that will result in keeping the pumping the same.
Is there a second?
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes, if there's a second, we can have discussion. And then it can still be voted up or down.
There you go.
And plus amendments can be offered after the second as well. Okay, motion fails again. Are there any other motions to be offered, board members?
Do we need to have a motion passed on this subject tonight?
Well, there does not have to be a motion if we stick with the 240 DFCs that were adopted last time for the Simsboro. And we also adopted, DFCs for the other aquifers. I could not tell you in detail what those were. What Phil is proposing. You haven't? Okay, thank you.
They're in the minutes.
Is it reflected in the minutes?
I will make a motion that we stick to the guidance previously provided to the district general manager and the district hydrologist and desired future conditions proposed by Groundwater Management Area 12 in the current round of joint planning. In other words, y'all did a good job last time. I missed that meeting, but I know what y'all did, and I think that we do not need to base DFCs on pumping. We should, maybe we shouldn't base pumping them one way or the other. We need to pump what we can pump with the DFCs, leaving them exactly, except for the changes in the minor aquifers, based on the guidance that y'all gave last time.
If there's not going to...
Cheryl?
No, I did not.
No, there doesn't have to be a motion if we're going to stick with what was voted on at the last meeting.
Cheryl?
Yes, Natasha, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to speak to the rebel rouser, but that's fine. Can you hear me? I think Kay would like to speak.
Go ahead, Kay.
So, is there something time sensitive about making a reconsideration of this tonight, or could this discussion be carried over at our next board meeting on November 17th?
The GMA will be voting on November the 12th.
Okay. Got it.
If there's no motion,
Is there a motion on the floor?
no, there's not a, he made a motion on the floor. Would you repeat that, Debbie? You're basically, it's just your motion, if I understood, was to stick with what we already voted on at the last meeting.
That's right.
Which technically doesn't require a motion, however, you made it, so is there a second?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
If we don't hit it, we don't have to have it, the motion's made. If we
Okay.
want to vote, second, all that stuff.
It
either way,
doesn't,
I'm
yeah.
for it.
Okay.
If we need it, I'll second.
If you need it, you'll second it. Just, we don't really, but that's okay. But for the purposes of discussion.
If the intent is to just keep what we have in place, we don't need it.
I will withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Dave.
I will withdraw my second.
Melissa, I think you had a question or a statement?
I guess I was looking at Phil's motion, where he advises the general manager to adopt district DFCs that incorporate the same amount of pumping for each aquifer and aquifer formation that were adopted in the present 2017 DFCs. This requires adopting drawdowns for all aquifers and aquifer formations. So I was trying to find out from him if it's the same amount of pumping, then it would be the 30,303 in the Simsboro, which is...
I believe that's correct, something to that effect. I don't know the numbers.
Because if that's what it was, I was trying to clarify that.
Okay.
Because I would second that motion if that's what it is.
Would you like to reword your motion, Mr. Cook?
Yes, and let me, would it be okay to clarify that, or?
Yeah.
Before I remake the motion? My intention with this is to keep the acre feet of pumping the same. Now, if we frame our advice to our general manager in terms of drawdown, the drawdown will determine the amount of the acre feet available, which is 83,000 acre feet rather than the 30,000 acre feet now available. So, sticking with the drawdown that we advised the board, the general manager at our September meeting, I didn't realize that that would entail another 50,000 acre feet of water being put into the amount that could be pumped. So what I'm trying to do with this motion is take that 50,000 acre feet back out, stay with the 30,300 acre feet that is in the 2017 DFC, and continue that on into the next round of DFCs. Now that would entail a drawdown instead of 240 feet of somewhere around 183 acre feet of water, something like that.
But my understanding is you guys are okay with the 240 at the last meeting. You gave guidance to the general manager to use the 240, and now all of a sudden we're still at 240. We were against that because of the amount of pumping.
Speaking for myself, I didn't understand that carrying over the 240 acre feet from the 27 DFCs would entail an extra 50,000 acre feet of pumping, and for me, that's where that's the reason for I would make a motion giving different advice.
But the 240 stays the same regardless of whether the pumping goes up or not.
The pumping stays the same, and the drawdown would be adapted or modified to match the 30,000 acre feet in the new unit.
In effect, you're saying you want to decrease the drawdown to 183 feet?
Yes.
Okay, well...
Or whatever that number would be. It would match the 30,000 acre feet, in other words.
And that's the problem that I have with the motion. If we were good at 240 for the last two periods of planning, we're not changing that. It's just that the model changed and allowed the pumping to go up. So now you're wanting to decrease the DFCs by minimizing the amount of pumpage. So, and I'm not saying that's certainly, everybody has their opinion up here, but that's the way I see it.
That's essentially accurate. I would like to point out, though, that during this next 5-year cycle, staying with the 30,000 acre feet and not increasing it to 83,000 acre feet would affect no pumpers whatsoever in the next 5-year cycle. And that would give us time to work on our DFCs with better data, more input, and for the cycle that comes after this upcoming 5-year cycle.
So if we're not going to hit the 240 DFC and we're not going to hit the pumping, and this whole conversation kind of superfluous, we'll have 5 years to look at it before we have to worry about pumping or the DFC.
Well, I see no reason to put it off when we can do that now.
You can't. You just can't. It's just a standoff.
Gil, are you going to modify your motion, or
Make another
does
motion.
someone else have a motion?
I'm going to restate my motion. It is, this time it is just the third paragraph, and that motion is, we move to make this, the board advises the general manager to adopt district DFCs that incorporate the same amount of pumping for each aquifer and aquifer formation that were adopted in the present 2017 DFCs. This requires adopting drawdowns for all aquifers and aquifer formations that will result in keeping the pumping the same. That is, the pumping stays at 30,300. The drawdown changes to match that pumping.
Is everybody clear on his motion? You can read it. It's in front of you. Is there a second?
I will second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt district DFCs that incorporate the same amount of pumping for each aquifer and aquifer formation that were adopted in the present 2017 DFCs. This requires adopting drawdowns for all aquifers and aquifer formations that will result in keeping the pumping the same. Any other comments or questions before we vote?
Is drawdown based on pumpage, or is pumpage based on drawdown?
Well, they sort of go together, don't they?
Well,
they're related. They're definitely related.
Mike, in a sense, they're the two wings of the same thing. GMA 12 speaks in terms of drawdown, which would, if we want to keep the pumping at 30,300 acre feet, that's going to require a drawdown not of 240 feet, but around 183 feet of drawdown, something like that. Now, when you get into the region, they don't care anything about drawdown. They want to know how much acre feet is available for regional planning purposes, and I think that's more germane to the board's interest to talk in terms of how many acre feet are we allowing to be put up for pumping, allowed for pumping.
President Smith, Andy Donnelly has a response to Director
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Mr. Donnelly?
The motion has been worded such that all aquifers are included.
That's correct.
As we discussed before, we did a lot of work on the other 5 aquifers that I think the board was okay with in terms of reevaluating how those pumpages were going to move. The way that it's worded is we're back on all of that to where we were the last time. And I thought we were going to just be talking about the Simsboro. So
Well,
that's something to consider.
Right, I understand. His motion definitely says all aquifers, not just the Simsboro. Our agenda item just says reconsideration of what was previously, does not refer to any specific aquifer, so the motion is acceptable, but thank you.
The reason I included all aquifers and aquifer formations was for the purpose of simplicity, so that we wouldn't have to, at this meeting, get into discussing all the different formations in the water that we would put into our DFCs for each of the aquifer formations, with the understanding that in the next 5-year cycles, none of those aquifers or formations will be affected by essentially readopting the acre footage permitted in the 2017 DFCs.
Any other comments or questions before we vote? Okay, roll call vote, and I'm going to start with Kay Rogers, since you are remote. Excuse me, there's a question.
This would be Mr. Donnelly.
Turn your mic on.
Turn your mic on.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Can the GMAs evaluate this channel?
Could you repeat? I couldn't hear that, Mike. Could GMAs evaluate what?
Could the GMAs evaluate this method of going with the bringing the pumpage first?
I mean, we can do a simulation that incorporates whatever pumpage we want to incorporate into it. It may take some time to create the file, but whatever pumpage is recommended,
The explanatory report couldn't possibly work with it.
Oh, no,
if that's what you're asking.
Director Shemaine, is this the question you had about this pumpage drive, drawdown versus drawdown driving pumpage?
Well,
Scott. I'm curious about that.
I think he's asking about the process.
Are you asking about the process, that what the GMA is going to do over the next 5 years? Or are you just asking if the drawdown of, for example, 240 feet, which results in approximately 181,000 acre-feet of pumping, or alternatively 30,000 acre-feet with 183 drawdown? Those are related. And so if you come back and you say, okay, we want you to look at the 2017 DFCs, and with the, using the new model, but no, excuse me, not using the new model. Phil's suggestion is that we go back to using the pumpage from 2017, not the DFCs from 2017. Because the pumping from 2017 was much less than the pumpage with the new model. So we're talking about the old model, less pumping, the new model, more pumping.
correct.
Okay, does that help, or my?
Well, to me, everything is based on DFCs.
Mm-hmm.
And from the DFCs, we go and we get our pumping.
Or vice versa.
And I'm just, I'm confused on that.
It is confusing. Mr. Donnelly, do you have anything further that might help clarify?
I had a question about the weighting of the factors. So conceivably that's already occurred over 5 years. So were the 9 factors reviewed for 240, or were they reviewed for 183? I mean, this would be really difficult to have these factors reviewed by January 5th for a new proposed DFC.
Not sure the factors are really evaluated for, and the factors are kind of general discussions about you know, certainly the factors that I worked on weren't related specifically to a particular drawdown. I mean, I talked about aquifer uses and conditions and things like that, private property rights. A lot of those factor discussions are somewhat generic.
Well, not that they're generic, but it takes years to evaluate them.
Yeah, I mean,
and so with the next cycle starting.
We talked about the factors, and those factors go into developing the DFCs rather than you're talking about the factors with respect to a particular number. The factors are discussed to help you develop the numbers.
Okay. So if you go back to the GMA with a new number, you know, you need, what, is it two-thirds? Two-thirds would have to jump onto this.
Correct.
Before January 5th.
Yeah,
okay.
and all the aquifers is going to cause an issue because we need to develop a brand new pumping plow for Lost Pond, which may cause some delays.
Andy, physically, could they get that done, in your opinion?
In terms of the modeling, I mean, in terms of doing the modeling, we can make the model file with whatever the district wants us to put in. If we change it to all of the aquifers being the same pumpage as we had in 2017, that will potentially cause issues that I'm not sure can be done by the GMA meeting on Friday. That's kind of going back to square one for all the aquifers rather than just Simsboro. So that's somewhat problematic.
Thank you.
Andy, a question. Would it be simpler to revise the motion that's on the floor to include just the Simsboro? Would that be more doable?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl, can I make a modification?
You can go right ahead. We'll see if Melissa accepts your amendment.
The board advises the general manager to adopt the district's DFCs for the Simsboro that incorporates the same amount of pumping that was adopted in the present 2017 DFC. This requires adopting a drawdown for the Simsboro formation and only the Simsboro that will result in keeping the pumping the same.
I believe the figure for that was 183 drawdown. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Can we?
So again, we're changing the DFC.
That's his motion.
Okay.
Melissa, do you accept his amendment since you seconded it?
I do accept it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt district DFCs for the Simsboro that incorporate the same amount of pumping for each aquifer and the same amount of pumping for the Simsboro that was adopted the present 2017 DFCs. This requires adopting drawdowns for the Simsboro of 183 that will result in keeping the pumping the same. Okay.
Is this guidance that you're going to give to the general manager?
That's correct. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Kay, are you ready to vote? Would you like to start?
I thought that prior motion only talked about keeping the pumpage the same as the DFCs in 2017 and didn't recite what the drawdown would be, because I don't think the people we're giving guidance to have figured that out yet, because they haven't gotten the guidance. Is that right?
Well, Mr. Donnelly did a slide presentation with a graph on it that showed the correlation between drawdown and acre feet pumped. And the 183 that they're quoting is close. I couldn't say it's exact, but that's what he's presented in his motion.
All right. So are we voting?
There will be a little difference.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Because the numbers that I was looking at was based on the 2070 number from that slope.
Okay.
And the old ones kind of go up and down a little bit because of what we had to do the last time, so it's not going to be a perfect match with that.
Okay. So
do you want to put the word approximately in there somewhere?
An estimated 183 feet?
That's acceptable to me.
Okay.
Melissa, is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Estimated, okay. This requires adopting drawdown for the Simsboro of an estimated 183 feet. Okay. Are we ready to vote now, Kay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes? David Fleming?
No.
Dale Cook?
Yes.
Melissa Cole?
Yes.
Larry Shoddy?
Yes.
Michael Samang?
No.
Billy Sherrill?
No.
Herb Cook?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes and 3 no. Motion passes. We now proceed to agenda item number 6. I have one. Mr. Ed McCarthy has requested to do a public comment on number 6. Consideration of and possible action on applications submitted to the district's groundwater mitigation reimbursement fund program for reimbursement greater than $3,500 and further discussion and possible action on the scope of reimbursement under the program. Go ahead, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, President Smith, board members. For those of you who are familiar with my presentations and president this district over more than the last decade, you'll know that I am an advocate of mitigation and a fan of the concept and an advocate of increasing the number of monitor wells that the district has and improving your science and making good and sound judgments based upon science and not speculation. My concern and what I wanted to bring to your attention is the fact that I'm not sure that the mitigation that you have adopted has been properly adopted or lawfully adopted for several reasons. I would encourage the board to carefully examine the law related to Article 3, Section 52 of the Texas Constitution, which prohibits the use of public funds for private purposes effectively, as opposed to a public purpose. And here what you're doing is you're giving money to individuals that is public money, basically for a private purpose, to fix their well. I'm not saying that isn't a good reason. I'm not saying that as a community it doesn't make sense. I'm just questioning whether or not you can lawfully do it. On top of that, as a legislatively created district, you only have those powers granted to you by the legislature. And I'm not sure the existing language in Chapter 36 allows the creation and use of mitigation funds as you are doing it. Again, I support it, I've advocated, and had TAG representatives actually oppose the idea of changing the legislation to make it clear that you do have the power to do that. I know there are other districts that have mitigation funds. They're effectively using private money, okay, and been privately funded and work through that, and that's a little bit different. The last thing I want to suggest to you is that as I understood the presentation and the votes of the board at the May 26th meeting at the American Legion Hall in Lexington, was that staff was directed to go back, develop a program, develop forms, develop a process for this mitigation, particularly above $3,500 reimbursements, and bring it back to the board. The program you're creating is really one that ought to be created through a rulemaking process. It should be publicly vetted. I've looked at the district's website. There's a short form for reimbursement, basically is name, address, and how much money you want. No justification for the amount, no supporting documentation. There are no rules to give you any guidance on how to make decisions. I represent several small districts and always encourage them when dealing with public funds to be very careful about how they do it. So So again, I'm not challenging necessarily what you're doing. I'm trying to bring to your attention what I believe to be a problem. And it was the idea that tonight you were going to start approving reimbursements above the $3,500 and possibly substantial money that I wanted to raise the concern with the board. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. I appreciate your advice. Okay, Mr. Totten, I believe you're going to lead this one.
I turned it off just in case.
I apologize. We've been fighting feedback all night, and I still feel like killing. Yes, ma'am. And in your board packet tonight, there should have been basically three requests for reimbursement that were considered and vetted through the monitoring committee of the district. Monitoring committee recommended bringing those to you tonight for consideration and possible approval. All told, up to this point in time, if we look at the amount of money that the district set aside, approximately $500,000 for mitigation. Up to this point in time, if we take the permits that are before you tonight, or the requests before you tonight, and the ones that are pending for later in the month, that gives us a total so far just around $90,000. So up to this point, we've spent about 20%. I'm assuming that the requests tonight are approved, and the requests that come later in the month, it'll be about 20% of the district's funds so far. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, you're going to go through these one by one.
Hey, Jim, that's me.
It's him.
You mean, you need to fix it because I'd like to say something.
Just leave it mute for now.
Yeah, that's about it. I just want to know if the committee, that's not me, I'm turned off. The committee is recommending these for approval.
Yes, sir. The committee reviewed these, recommended for approval.
Jim, I've got that feedback problem also, so I'll try to speak loudly rather than have this mic screaming. Our legal folks, have they considered some of the concerns that Mr. McCarthy brought up? Some of that stuff has occurred to me. I'm no lawyer, but I've wondered about that.
Yes, Director Cook. So the form that is signed is actually an agreement where the applicant agrees to let the district use their well going forward to gather and collect information for use to determine aquifer levels, condition of the aquifer. I find that to be a public use and a public purpose.
So you think we're on solid ground in that respect? In using what are obviously public funds for the purposes of putting them to a melt well mitigation?
I do find that it's solid that that's a public purpose. I mean, that's part of your charge and drag under Chapter 36 is research and monitoring of the aquifer. I will say that we are looking at more significant repairs, more severely impacted repairs that would require a full replacement of the well. We have not come down on that yet.
And obviously, we prefer to be spending private money, but at this point, public funds are what we have available.
I'm a member of the Well Mitigation Committee, and as I remember, we did recommend that the board pass these proposals on and authorize the payment. Although I have some real concerns going forward, and I don't mean to bring them up for these particular wells that we're proposing to approve for mitigation. One of the things that we may want to consider in the future is you as general manager approve a mitigation up to $3,500. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Let me try this. In the future, I'm going to suggest that applications up to perhaps $7,500 could be approved by the Well Mitigation Committee and you. I think that'll keep us from having to bring all of these before the board for approval is my reason for doing this, and anything over $7,500 would have to be approved by the board. It's dawned on me over the last couple of meetings that we've gotten ourselves into the insurance business. We're insuring wells. And looking at some of the applications and some that we've approved, there's quite a few discrepancies in what we were approving for payment. For instance, does the district pay sales tax? And should we pay sales tax if the well drillers include that on the well drillers' bills? Again, you don't have to answer that. This stuff I would like clarification on. And there's a great difference in the price that the well drillers bill the ultimately us for. For example, a 1.5 horsepower pump from one driller was billed at $916, and from another $1,964. So more than double that. We've approved another question is should we approve new pressure tanks? The pressure tank doesn't go bad because the pump has gone bad, or because you have trouble in that regard. Now, as a well driller, if one came to my place and said, "Mr. Cook, your pressure tank's real old. While we're here, we might as well replace it rather than charging me $1,000 to come back, later and do that," I would say okay. But the question that exists: should we pay for that, and how are we going to make that differentiation?
Mr. Cook, I appreciate your comments, but the agenda item is possible consideration, possible action on the actual applications. I think everything else you've said needs to be considered at the next well monitoring committee meeting. Very good things, very good thoughts.
Well, I'm willing to desist, but I was looking at possible action on the scope of reimbursement under the program, and that's what I was trying to address, was the scope.
Sure, got it. Just trying to keep us to the agenda of what we're posted for.
I'm almost finished anyway. We approved a bill that included 2 84-gallon pressure tanks for a domestic well. Again, if they want to upgrade, that's their business, but our concern is, whether or not we should pay for that. And that's some stuff I would like to consider at future meetings.
Can certainly add that to a future agenda. I think it needs to go to the well monitoring committee first. Does anyone else have any questions of Mr. Totten about the actual applications, or would you like to cover them one by one, or how do you wish to proceed?
That would be a question for the board. At this point, if we want to go through them, we can, but they've all been vetted by the monitoring committee, so.
What's the total amount of the request before us tonight?
I didn't bring my spreadsheet with me.
Do you know what the total amount of those that you have before us tonight? No?
Like I said, it's on my computer at the office.
Oh, okay. Then perhaps you need to go through them one by one.
Madam President, can I go and make a motion?
You surely can.
Make a motion that we approve the mitigation reimbursement for Sharon Foskey, for Tony Chow, and for Rudy Betcher, as presented in the packet.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Who second? Herb Cook?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There's a motion and a second that we approve those that were presented for us tonight. Could you repeat those names, Mr. Fleming? Rudy Botcher.
I'm just hung up.
You just hung them up. I'm sorry.
I will. I don't remember.
Botcher.
Tony Child, Rudy Betcher, and Sharon Foskey.
Sharon Foskey, yeah, and Mr. Betcher, and who was the other one?
Tony Child.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll just vote as a group. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this concludes our agenda items, and as of 8:26, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Well, I was hoping that this would be about an hour less than it was.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Robert Mace, I remember Robert Mace from back when did Robert work for LCRA at one time?
No,
Robert
no,
Mace?
no.
Well, he was on some kind of committee.
He was one of the deputy executive administrators for the Texas Water Development
That's
Board.
who it was. Yeah, because he was, I remember I went to a meeting, it was about the LCRA Optional Reservoirs that he was,
Right.
he was talking, speaking about. Yeah, I've been seeing him a lot over the years. I don't know. Very quickly.
I think the staff will. Not me personally, but I'll make sure the staff gets it. They'll take care of it. Yep.
Thank you.
You got it. The staff will be sending that out tomorrow.
But there will be a the recording will be online in 72 hours.
No, she wants to see the document, the 80-page document.
That won't be available till Peggy. She's the person that will know when that's ready. I couldn't tell you when it's ready.
Are you talking about the final decision?
Oh, the
final
proposal.
Decision?
Yeah.
Yeah, the staff should send that out tomorrow.
Good meeting. You did a good job.
Thank you. Good luck.
Right, that you all voted on.
The findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Staff will send that out to everybody tomorrow.
Right, because that's right. Well,
The motion was to approve the draft document as presented to the board.
Yep, in fact, I checked with our in-house counsel whether that was a public document, and she said not yet.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's public now.
But it is now.
Yeah. I understand all that. The nature of the motion refers to something that we have no idea what you voted on.
I understand. I wished it wasn't that way.
It was either that or read the 80-page document.
I mean, that's what I
December. I did that again? Yeah. I know I did that when I signed the audit.
Yeah,
Plus, I'll be there right for Christmas.
And then I just make these.
Yes.
Peggy sent them out tomorrow.
I definitely.
I want to go talk to her.
There we go. Okay.
So it's two of them, so I'm going to give Natasha.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Just making your work harder.
So that might be what she said.
Now, what, do I date it today or what I dated the other day?
Today's date.
What is
Today's
it?
date house, the one that I dated wrong the other day.
Oh, yeah.
So do I date it the 4th? It was the 4th.
You date it when you meant to sign it, because I haven't sent it to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, 11.
Wait, was it 11? Oh, yeah, 11/4. Okay.
That's when I was at the office.
All right, thank you.
Here's your copy.
Parties. Yeah. Everybody will get them. Okay, sure.
That's your copy.
Oh, thank you. My copy?
Thank you.
Don't give me an original.
Well, no, I've got mine.
You've got one. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Is this your flipping?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, wow.
I think they want to go home.
You think? Oh, that's what we thought would happen at the bank.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I did want to yeah, that's true.
Right. Sure. You don't do that. Yeah. Sure.
Sure. They said it in a very nice way, but I just wanted to make sure that.
Yes, no, that's a good recommendation. Okay. Oh, he hasn't hired one?
He should very well.
Okay, yeah,
No,
sorry.
Oh,
Because Peggy was already there, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and,
they might have been
yeah,
hired
and I
later.
was, just to recommend,
Right.
But I found other districts that have very detailed personnel, and I'm not saying I want as much as what they have.
We'll do what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want it overkill.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
They open that up? Oh, it's